What is going on? Welcome to another episode of OG 55 with the one, the only, the Italiano. We are breaking down Disneyland Resort expansions. We're going to react to the one and only Brickey. We love reacting to Brickey videos. He does amazing content, but we're going to break down his latest video on the possible Frozen expansion coming to Disneyland Resort. We're going to talk about it, break it down. We're going to get nerdy with all of y'all up next on OG 55. Welcome aboard, everybody, to another episode of OG 55. We're breaking down that Brickey video about a possible Frozen expansion, but we're even going to take it a little further, I think, with this conversation and how this Frozen rumor or speculation that Brickey's talking about might even impact Pandora and all that stuff. So we're going to really deep dive into this. We're going all the way in here with the Italiano. Welcome back, George. It's always good to have you on the channel, brother.
Thank you, bro. I'm glad to be back, and I love these kind of conversations. I remember watching Brickey's video the other night, and I remember bringing it to your attention because it was very interesting of how the placement and the setup for this potential land would be if they were to bring Arendelle to Disneyland. And as you mentioned, like it does ponder the question for some other projects that might be coming to the Disneyland Resort as well. So it's definitely going to be a very sweet but sticky Disney news and info kind of conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. Italiano, if you could let everybody at home know where they can find you on social media, sir.
Absolutely. You could find me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Disney George. You could also find me on Instagram under the Disney Italiano. And of course, you'll find me here on my home base at Orange Grove 55 with Citrus Corner with all that sweet, juicy, but sometimes sticky Disney news and info.
There it is. The sticky. All right, let's rock and roll. We got Brickey over here styling with the Mickey shade. Is that, yeah, it's Mickey shades, bro.
Yeah, he's going all out.
Yeah, he is. I like his style. I like his style for sure. So this is a great video from Hey Brickey pretty recently about Frozen. And I do apologize. I don't know if you can hear that. We actually have coyotes, believe it or not, like in the hills by my house, and they're acting up right now. But anyway, Frozen, he made a speculation video about why he believes that the new Frozen area that was recently built over there in Hong Kong might be coming here to Disneyland Resort. So George, I'm going to play this video. We're going to stop along the way like we usually do. We're going to talk about it, break it down, because this is fantastic stuff. Here it goes. Brickey, take over.
And this one even shocked me. And it fits so perfectly in the Stitch parking lot off the back of Critter Country that it makes me wonder, did Disney pull a fast one on Hong Kong? Friends, I think I have cracked the code on the land that perfectly fits right where I'm standing as part of Disneyland Forward. I was looking into Disneyland Forward and doing a little digging around when I took the footprint to scale of World of Frozen and laid it over the top of this parking lot as part of Disneyland Forward. I was shocked. You cannot tell me that it wasn't designed with the idea in mind. Maybe if we get Forward approved, we'll just design it in a way where we know that it perfectly fits inside of Disneyland.
And when Brickey says it perfectly fits, he's going to talk about it. He's going to really break it down. But when he talks about it perfectly fits, I mean, it perfectly fits to a point where it's almost...
It's scary a little bit.
Well, yeah, it's almost not even debatable. I mean, right? I mean, it's crazy. The walkways and everything line up perfectly. So we'll see. I'm going to let him talk. I'm going to let him explain, and then we're going to break it down because this is wild stuff.
Friends, today what we're talking about is so incredibly exciting. I think I've cracked the code on one of the developments of Disneyland Forward and what exactly is going to be the extension of Disneyland. World of Frozen coming to the Disneyland Resort. I will convince you by the end of this video. So first things first, let me just show you what I discovered. Let's take to scale the World of Frozen in Hong Kong and just lay it over where I'm standing right now. There you go. Zero editing required. It perfectly fits into this space. And I'm going to take you on a walking tour of World of Frozen at the Disneyland Resort. But first, I just wanted you to see how perfectly it fits. Even the walkway that would bring you over from the dead end of Critter Country is perfectly aligned for a tunnel or bridge to take you over Disneyland Drive. It's not an accident.
Okay, so let me back up a little bit here. So even look at this. Like he's right. Even the pathway leading from what, Galaxy's Edge?
Yeah, Critter Country.
Or Critter Country, I'm sorry, into this land. There, it lines up perfectly with the path that for this Frozen land. I mean, it's almost not even debatable that this was planned for Disneyland Resort, and it just so happens that Hong Kong got it first.
Yeah, it fits perfectly like a glove. And I think, honestly, the reason why Hong Kong did get it first was because of waiting for the zoning for Disneyland Forward. I think, honestly, if it got approved, Disneyland might have gotten it first or might have gotten it simultaneously with Hong Kong, because you know how Disney does it. Like, they always like to make replicas, and yeah, got to make two.
You got to make two. You got to make two. Now, I have some issues with this. We're going to really talk about this, because if this is true, and I honestly, Brickey makes a good case. I'm pretty much there with this. I do believe this is going to happen. And you mentioned last night on the phone, you brought up a great point with Frozen 3 and Frozen 4 coming out, you know, in the coming years. It just seems like the no-brainer, so to speak. But I do have issues with it, though. As much as I love Frozen, I love that franchise, I have a few issues with it. Not necessarily going here in this spot, but just at Disneyland in general. We'll talk about it. But let's let Brickey go forward, and we'll kind of go from there.
From the dead end of Critter Country is perfectly aligned for a tunnel or bridge to take you over Disneyland Drive. It's not an accident. I've done this plenty of times, and with a little massaging, sometimes you can get things to fit, but this was absolutely designed to fit inside of this footprint. There's no way this is a coincidence. This is purposeful. With the way that I believe I have figured this out, where I'm standing in the dead center of this now parking space will become that beautiful water lagoon that sits dead center. The water lagoon does something very, very important, and this is what we're going to break down today to convince you that this land was designed for this plot of land. The water puts everything further away from you. And because we're in an incredibly tight cul-de-sac of land, sight lines are super important for the trick of immersion. Therefore, putting us on one side of a body of water and putting everything big on the other side, it keeps a safe distance to where we never get too close to the outer perimeter. Therefore, we never get to see outside World of Frozen when we're standing inside of it, making us feel like we're really there. Behind me, where the checkpoints are, getting towards the 3/4 of the way up through this parking lot, is where I believe the castle will sit. This is super important because it gives you an icon on the other side of the lake, creating that scale, creating that forced perspective. When you come in from the tunnel from Critter Country and you see the body of water and you see the castle here on the other side, it tricks your mind into thinking that this is way bigger and way more expansive than what we think. But also, by putting the castle here, we keep it pretty clear out of the sight lines of the folks that live over on Walnut Street.
Right.
One of the things that Disneyland has promised to the city and the community of Anaheim is that all the new things that they build with Disneyland Forward will have a 360 appearance to it. Think of the Matterhorn or Big Thunder Mountain. If you see those outside of the park, they look like real mountains. They don't look like Radiator Racers used to look, where it's just literally cut off and exposed to everybody outside of the park. So therefore,
yeah, and even Galaxy's Edge is like that, where like when you pull into the Mickey and Friends parking structure, it's like rocks on sticks, and you know, and it doesn't, for me personally, it doesn't bother me. I don't really care. I care more about what it looks like inside the park, to be honest.
Yeah.
But look, to be fair to the residents and stuff, I mean, it is unsightly. So I'm glad that Disney is respecting the residential areas around this property, and they're doing that 360 design work. I think that's great. What are your thoughts on that, George?
Yeah, I agree with you. Like for me personally, it doesn't ruin the magic. It doesn't take away anything. Although I will say the Black Spire lollipops kind of get to me a little bit, um, but yeah, I think as far as like Disney thinking of the residential area and the people living there and what have you, I think it's great to kind of at least if they're going to be living there, let them you know get some good sight lines.
Yeah, no, 100%. Now, before we continue with the Brickey video, I want to talk about this. Okay, so he makes a really good case in this video that Frozen is going in this spot. Now, look, he might be wrong. I mean, we're all nerds here. We're all speculating. He might be wrong, but I mean, he makes a really solid case. The walkways even line up. I mean, that's not coincidental. This is probably where the Frozen expansion is going to go for Disneyland.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Why does OG have problems? A few problems with this. For a few reasons.
Break it down, bro.
I'm breaking it down. The reason why I have a few problems with this, number one, what it means for DCA is my number one concern. Because what I've been saying and what you've been saying all along, George, is Pandora does not belong in DCA. Just straight up does not belong in DCA at all. Okay. If they're building this, this expensive Frozen expansion at Disneyland, it would be hard to imagine that Pandora as a land would also go in Disneyland. That seems like an awful lot just for one park. You're really pulling away from DCA at that point, where DCA is really falling behind. I mean, DCA has always been behind, but now the gap is getting way wider. I can't see Disney doing that. I can't see Disney adding Pandora and Arendelle in Disneyland. It's just not going to happen. So if Frozen is going in this spot for Disneyland Forward, you can bet your bottom dollar that Avatar is going into DCA. Okay. Now here's the thing. Here's the caveat with that. I have an issue with Avatar going into DCA, assuming it's a land. So if they're going to try to shoehorn a Pandora into DCA, no go. I don't support that at all. It just theme wise does not. You can't even like massage that into the park. There's no connective tissue at all. Right. So I'm opposed to that. Now, if the Avatar experience coming to presumably DCA is just an attraction that will be put into Hollywood Land, I'll be fine with that. Hollywood Land is sort of like Universal Studios. It's kind of a catch-all. I mean, you can kind of put anything in there and it's Hollywood, right? I mean, that would be fine for me. But if they try to build the land in DCA, I would have huge issues with that. But what are your thoughts on this, George? In terms of like, okay, if they're putting Frozen at Disneyland, where in the world is Avatar going?
Absolutely. So, to your point, I think obviously Disney is capable of doing anything they set their minds to it. No doubt about it. If they wanted to do two lands at Disneyland, they can do it. However, are they going to do that? Chances are probably not, because Disneyland is already a stacked park as it is. DCA needs a lot more love. It needs a lot more catching up. We noticed that they started focusing on DCA back in 2011, 2012 when World of Color came and Buena Vista Street and Cars Land. And then years down the road where eventually Paradise Pier became Pixar Pier and what have you, with the small subtleties. But then it became very flatlined, so to speak, and DCA just kind of got put to the wayside a little bit, where, not saying that Disneyland will never get stuff again. It needs to expand, it needs to grow, it needs to update or upgrade or whatever terminology you want to use. But there's enough in Disneyland right now that can hold for a full day for people to actually come out. And you made this point many times, OG, where if people are coming out to California, no doubt about it, they're going to go to Disneyland Park. Right. But people can opt out of DCA. Why? Because to pay for a same price ticket that you would for Disneyland,
right,
for DCA, but you're not getting the same kind of an immersive experience in the sense of having it as a full day experience.
Right.
People aren't going to do it.
Well,
you know?
this is the thing. When you have a tourist or anybody going to Disneyland Resort, right? I'm not talking about locals. I'm talking about like out of state visitors, you know, the once in a lifetime or the once every few years kind of visitor. If you're coming to Disneyland Resort, Disneyland is an automatic. It's a given. You're going to Disneyland. DCA is not so much an automatic, right? So if I'm Disney, what I'm doing is I'm making sure that DCA is as strong as possible, because if you can get people to go to DCA, if you can entice people to go to DCA, then you're almost guaranteeing both parks, because no one's going to travel from Japan to California and just go to DCA.
No.
But they might go just to Disneyland though. Correct. So if you can lock in that DCA visit, you're almost guaranteed that Disneyland visit. And that's why I think it's really smart to really, really, really focus and put your eyes into DCA. Disneyland's already sold. People are already going to go to that, but they need to do the DCA thing, you know? So
absolutely. But going back to with Pandora, I completely agree with you 110%. There's no way that it's not that they can't put a Pandora land in DCA.
Right.
Let's make that perfectly clear that they definitely can.
It can fit,
but
yeah.
Is it going to fit into the whole California adventure, you know, aspect? And a lot of people argue, well, DCA is far from that of how it was when it was the 1.0, but not necessarily, because we've talked about this many times with Cars Land, Route 66. It connects like through Arizona, through the state of California. Avengers Campus, you know, it's like an actual campus in Silicon Valley, you know, and then you have the Pixar Pier. It's based off, you know, off of the Pixar films, but it's like a seaside pier that you would find in California. Right. So there's still
some connective tissue there.
Correct. With Pandora, you know, there's no connection, even with down. I mean, the only thing that you could say that there's some sort of connection is people down on Earth that travel to Pandora. So it's like, is it the notion that, okay, you start out in California and then you blast off into Pandora, you know? So, but it just doesn't cohesively fit into the park. However, as a single attraction or experience, putting that in Hollywoodland, because Avatar as a film franchise is very successful, and it's something that you could find in Hollywoodland.
Right. And Hollywoodland, the theme for Hollywoodland could be sort of similar to that of Universal, where Universal is kind of like live the movies, right? Sort of thing, or ride the movies. You can kind of have that same kind of mindset with Hollywoodland. You know, you ride the movies, right? So Pandora would be fine in there, I think, you know?
Yeah.
That's okay. But if you try to shoehorn a whole Pandora, Avatar would be fine in Hollywoodland. But if you try to shoehorn an entire Pandora, the entire land, I mean, unless the Imagineers and James Cameron have a really creative way to make it make sense, and I don't think they do, to be honest with you. I don't think they would go through that.
I don't think they do either. And I think that's why they use the term experience. Mm-hmm. I think if they were to have said land, then I would be more concerned. I do have high hopes that obviously Avatar is going to go in DCA, because Imagineer Chris Beatty kind of leaked that out.
Right, and he backpedaled, but the cat was kind of out of the bag. Yeah. And I was kind of still holding on to hope, like, no, they're not going to do that. After the Brickey video and seeing how this Frozen thing fits perfectly, I'm pretty certain that Chris Beatty stuff with the DCA, I'm like 90% there.
And you also have to think too, Chris Beatty is not just a second-year Imagineer. I mean, this guy was actually on stage at the expo with Josh D'Amaro, you know, bringing up some of his own personal concept art for like the what ifs and the maybes and the, you know, that kind of stuff. So he's definitely.
Did you say?
Oh, I think I did.
Did you say maybe? Hold on.
I think I.
'Cause I'm that girl that drives you crazy, but you're killing me alone. Got you thinking maybe alone. Got you thinking maybe alone.
Shout out to Maybe. Shout out to Maybe. I had to do it.
Absolutely.
Sorry about that, brother.
Definitely. But yeah, I think the only way around it is that for them to just build a Avatar experience, which is an attraction that
Right.
is just as strong
Right.
as Flight of Passage at Animal Kingdom.
Right, exactly. Oh, so so let's do the math here a little bit, right? So let's just say that's what we're getting. Let's just say DCA is getting a, maybe it's Flight of Passage, maybe it's some new Avatar ride that you know, for based on the newer movies, whatever. And then it's going to go into Hollywoodland, right? Which would make sense too, because with Disneyland Forward, we're going to get the Eastern Gateway expansion, and they can push out DCA more and more into that bus load unload area, expanding out. That butts right up against Hollywoodland. That's a perfect spot for a big show building for something like Avatar. So that works. And then assuming we're going to get the Avengers e-ticket, which is going to be kind of on the other side over by Avengers Campus. So now we're working with something here. We got an Avatar e-ticket over in Hollywoodland, and we got an e-ticket in Avengers Campus. Now we're cooking with some gas here. That would work. And now you're bringing some heavy hitters to that side of DCA. Hollywoodland especially needs it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
And especially, and you also made this point over the phone last night too, when even though DCA would be getting those single individual attractions such as the Avengers e-ticket and the Avatar experience, but they're strong e-ticket attractions where with the Frozen Land, yeah, they're getting a whole new entire land, but those attractions such as the Wandering Oaken bobsled roller coaster and the Frozen Ever After, they could be very strong attractions, but they're not those like really like big e-ticket attractions. And I feel like that's where DCA kind of has that one up over Disneyland, is because DCA is more for like an older
crowd.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
you have like your teenagers, your
It's more
your
that
thrill
like that.
seekers.
Yeah, it's more like that Universal kind of demo, I think, over at
Yeah.
DCA.
Which
Absolutely.
I actually enjoy. I love how, you can get both perspectives of
Right.
like Disneyland and DCA. But also too, before we continue on with Brickey, if you also wanted to touch upon too, the other thing that kind of concerns you with a full-on
yeah.
Frozen Land,
Right. Yeah,
going into Disneyland.
let's talk about that for a second, because yeah, here's my thing, right? Like I don't mind the single IP lands in Disneyland. I know that's a controversial topic for a lot of fans, and a lot of fans don't like it. My opinion on that is a little more nuanced. Certain circumstances I think are okay. I supported Star Wars in Disneyland because Star Wars is kind of its own thing, right? It can't really. It can support its own land. It's Star Wars as a franchise is a lot of things. It's very much forward thinking. I know people are going to say, but it's a galaxy far, far away. I know, but it's the future to us. Okay, so it's that forward thinking kind of Tomorrowland kind of energy. It has new frontiers. It almost has like a galactic Adventureland vibe, right? So for me, it was kind of like, okay, so Star Wars has so many elements to it that I think it can kind of justify its existence as its own land, because there's so many different kind of themes going on here with that franchise, right? It doesn't really have a single home. So I'm like, okay, why not? Why don't we do a whole Star Wars land? That could work, right? And plus, we don't have a land at Disneyland that was like another planet. I thought that was an interesting idea to add to the roster of lands at Disneyland, is to have one be a completely different planet, not even of Earth. That was pretty dope. But when you start to get into other IP, like Frozen isn't Star Wars. It's not. It doesn't have the variety, right, like Star Wars has. Frozen is very much Fantasyland. So when you take a property like Frozen and do its own land separate from Fantasyland, it feels a little disjointed to me, because what should belong in Fantasyland now is at the other end of the park in its own little world. That feels weird to me. I don't know if I like that. What are your thoughts on that, George?
So, to your point, I'm going to actually work backwards now a little bit. So we're going to go over to where Tomorrowland and Fantasyland meet as lands. I remember, and I'm for sure you remember too, when Imagineer Scott Trowbridge kind of leaked out a little video that he did. I believe it was on Twitter, where it showcased the motorboat section where where the subs is and the monorail and then the Autopia and what have you. And
Right.
then there was also a little video clip that he did where he showcased, I believe it was like the Swiss Alps or
Right.
something. It was
Well, yeah, he was on location there. He was on
right,
location there.
exactly. So we were all kind of speculating that putting two to two together, is that where a Frozen section was going to go? And then it would kind of connect with the
Existing
aesthetics
Fantasyland.
of Fantasyland, and then
Right.
you'd have the aesthetics of Matterhorn Mountain that kind of fit into that. And it's like, that's perfect.
Right.
And then you think, okay, well, then you look at Brickey's standpoint, which is very relevant. I mean, it works out perfect.
He's spot on, dude. I'm pretty sure he's correct in this.
I am too. But for the sake of having the conversation of your concern with having an entire Frozen area that's not even close to being near Fantasyland,
Weird.
how is that going to look? So then I started thinking, and I like to think myself, and you as well, and this is where I appreciate Brickey, because he's an innovator. He's a creative. He loves
Absolutely.
to, he's an Imagineer in his own right. I love like his content. I love his videos. I love how he thinks. Which, by the way this is paused, looks like he has like a hidden Mickey ear connected to him from the back end.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing too that he brings to the table too, Brickey, I believe he has an architecture background. So when he's analyzing, like you see a lot in this video, and we're going to play more of it, but like when he's talking about like the body of water and the way that your eyes kind of go with the buildings and things like that, he's seeing it from an architectural background.
Yes.
And I think that's really cool that because a lot of people in our space, they don't have that background. So it's very fascinating to hear him talk about this stuff.
Absolutely. So I was thinking like how the mentality of how Brickey thinks, and I was thinking, well, what else can go in that space? And it may not necessarily match to a T of how Frozen is, and I know that there is also some backlash with this land over in Shanghai and how people would feel like it coming to the domestic parks. However, Disney can alter certain things. I think honestly Zootopia would be the perfect fit for that area.
Because Zootopia.
Okay.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
No. I was just going to say, because Zootopia there's really no connection to any land that's already existing in Disneyland. It doesn't necessarily fit in Fantasyland.
No.
It doesn't fit in New Orleans Square. It doesn't fit in Tomorrowland. It doesn't fit in Frontierland. But where it does kind of fit in, that it would be adjacent to the walkway, would be Critter Country.
Right.
But yet it would have its own separate area that it's like it's not connected with anything, but yet it kind of is.
Yeah, I think Zootopia would be better fit because you're right. If Zootopia doesn't have like a clear spot to go, like you're not, like you said, you're not going to put that in Fantasyland. It obviously doesn't belong in Tomorrowland or Frontierland or any of that. So it makes sense for it to be its own. And that's kind of how I see Star Wars. It kind of has its own thing, so it can support a land. It doesn't, like Star Wars doesn't really fully fit anywhere. I know Disney sort of like puts it into Tomorrowland, but I think really it's unique enough that it can definitely support its own land. I think Zootopia is the same way. When you have Frozen, it's like that's such a fantasy land.
Yeah.
Property, you know what I'm saying? So Zootopia, though, would be great. I would be supportive of that. Absolutely. Now, the attraction surprised me and you because the queue for that one, I mean, I knew you go through like the police station. But
so did I. I didn't know you go through the cells and the bunkers and all that stuff.
Yeah, like Cell Block 5 and stuff. I was like, that's a little too intense. I that's not going to fly out here in the States, in California and stuff. I mean, it's not going to work. I was actually a little like taken aback by that. That was a little bit.
Well, especially because I don't really think it even showcases that in the movie. So I'm surprised, like, you don't really see too much of that. I mean, you see the police station, you see the captain's office, you see Clawhauser, like at the front receptionist desk and everything. But yeah, like, I mean, and I think that still can be an easy tweak on Disney's part for
you
them
just take out the cells,
and put something else or something. Put in like the police cafeteria or something,
Exactly. And you can
Yeah.
pump like smells in there, and you can sell some food at the end of when you exit.
Yeah.
Classic Disney style, right?
Classic
Classic
Disney. But I mean, I'm not discounting Brickey's assumption
Yeah.
that Frozen, I very well Frozen could be
Yeah.
going there because, as I said, it fits like a glove. But in my perspective, I agree with you, OG. I can see the land going there of how it fits, but I can't see how it fits separate from Fantasyland. So for me, I would go by Scott Trowbridge's initial possible assumption and add a Frozen mini land adjacent to Fantasyland, and then I would put Zootopia in the Stitch parking lot.
It would make more sense in the motorboat Autopia area. It would make way more sense.
Yeah.
But that would be costly because you got to reconfigure the monorail beam. And I think eventually they will figure something out with that area, and they will address the monorail beam. But it looks like they don't want to do that right now,
Yeah.
And ever since Wizarding World, these companies, Disney and Universal, are really into like these hyper immersive lands. So I can see Disney's mindset of like, well, if we put it over there in the parking lot across the street, it's this more immersive experience. You go through the tunnel, you come out the other end. It's a very Galaxy's Edgy, Wizarding Worldy kind of experience. I'm certain they're leaning in that direction, but I think thematically, I think it would fit better and make more sense with the motorboat Autopia area. So it kind of I'm not like completely against it, but there's pros to it. I see the pros to it, but I also see quite a few cons to it too. And this is coming from I'm a big Frozen fan. So, all right, let's continue.
Castle, sort of centrally located somewhere in these parts, would keep it pretty far from being seen outside of the park. Therefore, they don't have to worry about doing a complete 360 render to the backside. But also, if we look at what was built out in Hong Kong, we see that right along the edge of where the Mickey and Friends Pixar Palace parking garage is, that will be where the attraction Wandering Oaken's Sliding Sleighs will exist. So let's break down real quick how this is absolutely brilliant and how there's no way this is an accident. We have a giant parking structure that we need to make disappear. If we place rolling hills all along the side of that, at the top of the rolling hills, we plant trees that are at a perspective that look like they go back for a long distance, the parking garage disappears. But it also is a perfect placement for an attraction that's very tall, but not too deep. Therefore, the area that I'm walking in right now will become that attraction. We'll be flying around right here in sleds with a beautiful landscape behind us, making us feel like we're inside the world of Frozen. It fits absolutely perfect. But you ask, what about the view from the parking structure? Oh, I figured that one out too. Now, how do we make a parking garage disappear? Well, if you look at the height of this tree, you notice that from where I'm standing, it's about the height of the Mickey and Friends Pixar Palace parking structure. These branches, I can easily reach myself right at the top. So if you take somebody like me, who's about 6 feet tall, put my arms up in the air, only 8 foot, 9 foot, 10 foot walls in this area would make most of Mickey and Friends disappear. Now, in my Disneyland Forward series, I've already done a video about Disney buying Magic Way and taking that road out, converting it over to backstage. I do believe it will still be a road, but it will just be that service road that Disney puts on the outer edge of all of its theme parks, so cast members and security and emergency services can easily get around the outer edge of the park, never interfering with the guest experience. Sadly, as we all know, Disney has had some problems recently with activity on top of their parking garages that is pretty sad and kind of a disturbing trend that has happened at the park in the last couple of years. If you want to know more, Google it. Now's not the time or place. So on the side that we're standing on, imagine those rolling hills with trees at the very, very top of the landscape. But on the parking garage, imagine Disney putting in a modern design fence that would go along the southern side of the garage, therefore making it extra safe and secure on top of the garage, but also not making it possible where people can look over inside of the theme park because you know what would break the immersion is seeing people stand above the trees staring at you as you're whipping around on your sled. This tall but narrow attraction
I want to kind of touch upon this because I don't think we've ever done a video on this Frozen coaster.
No,
I don't think we have.
did. No.
Okay, here's my thoughts on it. Like, it's beautiful. I think aesthetically, obviously, it's gorgeous. You look at the imagery here; it's amazing. But like, well, wrong footage. I should probably hold on one sec. I should probably actually do the nice footage. Hold on. Where was it? Okay, well, it'll play. But anyway, the attraction is gorgeous, and it kind of uses the land as its backdrop, right? Mm-hmm. The only issue that when I was watching this on YouTube, like the point of view videos and all that stuff, it is really short, right?
Now I didn't get to watch it yet, actually, as the POV video of this ride. Is it shorter than Seven Dwarfs Mine Train?
It seems like it. I would say it's probably more like a Gadget Go coaster length. If I were to guess. It's pretty short. It's pretty short. Yeah.
Now, do you think when Disneyland? Well, see, this is part of the issue too, because when you mirror an exact replica of a land that now already exists in Hong Kong into Disneyland, you almost have to go scale for scale verbatim, so to speak. So could there still be potential where they may expand that ride out, or would it be basically the same length of time based off what Brickey is saying? Because
what Brickey is saying is the one that Hong Kong got is the one that we were supposed to get first, basically, because it was built for that plot of land, right? I would be surprised. I mean, unless they're getting a lot of complaints with the shortness of this attraction, I would be surprised if they changed it. I think we're probably going to get it.
I agree too, but I also think too the Hong Kong crowd, I don't think is
diehard Disney like we are.
Nitpicky, like us in the domestic parks.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. We have so many, and I've talked about this so many times. This annual pass culture. And I'm part of it. I'm not, I am. I go fairly often. I go like once a month, but I think it has really changed fandom. I think it has. I think there is such a thing as going too much, and I think it's different for everybody. I mean, everyone's mileage varies, but I think when you go somewhere like these parks way too much, I think you kind of get a little
desensitized.
Yeah, and cynical, you know what I'm saying? It's like if you love chocolate cake, right? But if you had chocolate cake twice a day for months, you probably would start to think differently of chocolate cake, as opposed to if you had it just once in a while as like a special treat, right?
Or like if you have never mind, that doesn't apply.
Existing right where I'm standing is a perfect way to make this land feel more immersive and to make the real land go away and disappear. Now let's see where we'll enter this land. So right around where I'm standing in the center of this parking lot, this aligns pretty perfectly with the dead end over at Critter Country, which I've been telling you for a long time. One day that emergency exit will be a transformational spot inside of the park to more Disney magic. And it feels like that is on the horizon. And if you think about it, it not only perfectly aligns on
that
the
literally
map,
is perfectly like a straight shot.
It would not be hard to create a
perfect, dude. It's absolutely perfect.
Bring people over into World of Frozen, but it also blends together very well as far as the design goes. Critter Country, covered in woods, sort of scenic. You're traveling through the woods, you go through a cave-like tunnel, and on the other side, you get to the far end of the woods, where you discover a beautiful blue body of water with a village that's formed all around.
And can I just say, wherever this does go, because we all know at some point Frozen has to come to the domestic parks. I mean, all the other international parks are getting it. Tokyo, Hong Kong, I think eventually Paris is going to get it. One of the domestic parks has to get it, but without a shadow of a doubt, we can say that this land is going to be aesthetically pleasing in the daytime and at night.
Yeah. Oh, dude, this thing is a stunner. It's an absolute stunner. It's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. And what Brickey is setting up here is like, yeah, you go through the kind of the woodsy critter country, and then you go through the cave, and then there's that big reveal with Frozen Land, right? It's perfect. I mean, it is. It's going to be like in terms of immersion. I think that this is a fantastic setup. Just that Fantasyland connect, it just doesn't belong way off at the other end of the park.
Yeah,
that's the only thing. And then what it also means for DCA with the Avatar stuff is what's also kind of leaving the bad taste in my mouth, you know. But we'll see. I mean, and actually, well, I'll take that back. The Avatar thing is sort of a little bit of a little nuance too, because if it's just the attraction in Hollywoodland, I'm okay with it in DCA. But if it means that Pandora is coming to DCA, then I'm really against it. Right. So we'll see. But this is gorgeous. It kind of reminds me of Disneyland's castle.
I wonder if what can kind of save that notion with Frozen being away from Fantasyland is with Tiana's Bayou Adventure. Because essentially, like off of Critter Country, you then have another Disney princess in her kind of her own storytelling outside of Fantasyland. That would be the only thing that I could think of that might save the overall. But I mean, I still get what you're saying. Like, I still can't see Frozen outside of Fantasyland.
Well, no, I see what you're saying too, and I think the only pushback I have with that is that because Tiana's part of, I'm assuming she's going to be just one part of New Orleans Square, basically, right? Mm-hmm. Where this is like, it's a whole land
for Frozen. Yeah.
So if they added like an Anna and Elsa ride, like what they did with Epcot, right? It was like they just added a Frozen ride in the Norway Pavilion. That feels kind of like Tiana, but this is different because it's the whole land. It just it's weird to me. It's really weird to me, and I hate to be like this, like, you know, kind of like a negative Nancy with this, because it is a beautiful land. It just, that disconnect from Fantasyland.
Now, this land over at Hong Kong, it has two attractions, right? It has the Wandering Oak and Sleighs.
Yeah.
And then the Frozen Ever After, correct?
Exactly. Okay. Which is weird to me that they actually did that. I never thought they would actually do that because the Epcot one was a reskin.
Yeah. Now, I will say in a positive way that when this, I'm not even going to say if, I'm going to say when Frozen comes to Disneyland, because I think it's going to come sooner than later. I will say when you guys get your rendition of Frozen Ever After, you guys will get the Hong Kong experience where you don't have to worry about those god awful LED screen faces.
Yeah, oh exactly. And they gotta do Walt Disney World right with that. You gotta rip those out and put the real faces in there for Florida too. But I did love Frozen Ever After though. That was a really, really cool ride.
I'm glad, because I forgot to even ask you, like, I mean, I think I might have asked you, but it kind of like fell to the wayside, like, of what you actually thought of that ride.
Yeah, no, I loved it. I thought it was great. Really good. You know, I thought for, especially for a re-theme, I think they took the original ride system and incorporated it in a pretty creative way, where it feels like it was a Frozen ride from the beginning. It doesn't feel like this is a tacked on thing, you know?
Yeah.
And on the outer edge, rocky mountainscape and trees that just further puts you into the idea that you've traveled through the woods and you have made it to the edge of this land. I agree, Monorail. It's awesome. As we come through the portal and we take a left, we'll be walking around the lake, getting all these beautiful views of the outer edge around us. And we will be coming up to the little village. The village is super important, not only to add in shopping and food to make the land way more profitable, but it also adds the idea that if I'm standing here in front of a building that feels pretty tall, then just imagine how tall that castle or that mountain or those rolling hills must be out on the edge of my horizon. When you have something in front of you, it allows you to judge everything that is far away from you. So letting people get up close to the shops, but not get close to the other items, is a key of perspective, training the human mind to see things. Hey, how you doing?
And that's what I'm talking about. This is why I love Brickey, because what he just explained is that's the architecture background talking.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? How he explains that. And I like that a lot. I really find it fascinating. You know?
And that's the other thing too, where if you actually look at the architecture of Frozen, it fits in with the Disneyland Fantasyland architecture.
It's
It fits
perfect.
the
Yeah.
color scheme, it fits the architecture, it fits, and it's just like you have that, and then you have it all the way over here,
Right.
and it's like it feels like a disconnect.
It does. It feels like both the perfect spot for it and like the worst spot for it at the same time in a lot of ways. You know what I'm saying? I just feel like there's this weirdness. Now, I'm not going to play the rest of the video. I'm going to link actually his video down below. Make sure everyone you check out the entire video. It's awesome. Brickey's a friend of the channel. Support him. If you don't follow him or subscribe to him, make sure you do that as well. But fascinating insight from him. I think Brickey is spot on with this. Look, we even had Ken Potrock, Disneyland president, who was over in Asia looking at these new lands. He wasn't there for his health. He wasn't there just vacationing. He was there for a reason. You know what I'm saying? This thing is coming. This thing is coming to Disneyland. Yeah. And maybe they'll announce it at D23. We'll see, you know?
Yeah. I think, you know what? I don't know. I might go a little bit balls to the walls on this. I mean, I think we might hear something with at the shareholders meeting.
Oh, the annual meeting?
Yeah, because I think this shareholders meeting, which we'll actually get into another video, that this one's very crucial, and Bob Iger and the rest of the Walt Disney Company need to keep their shareholders by their wayside. You know, they have to convince them that, you know what, moving forward, we know what we're doing. And I think what a better way to kind of keep and convince the shareholders to stay on their side and not with these activists is to announce something big. And I think, honestly, Arendelle World of Frozen coming to Disneyland.
Oh, dude, yeah.
I don't know. I think that might be the right medicine for it.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you're an investor, if you're a Wall Street person, and you know, Frozen is just bags of money. Let's be honest. It is.
Did you say
it's a
money?
Oh, I said money. Oh, I did say money. You're right, George. I did say money. Here, we'll do a little something different today.
Brand new money, brand new hundreds, got a bunch of zeros like a bag of new Funyuns.
Actually, I can't resist. We'll do a little La Lisa too. There we go. Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's Money in the Bank. I think that, yeah, maybe he will announce it. Maybe he will. I mean, the only thing though is that I don't know if the Disneyland Forward thing will be approved by the city by then. But maybe they can announce it and say it's coming to Disneyland. Well, yeah,
when's the votes in spring, right? For Disneyland
Yeah,
Forward?
I thought it was like closer to May. I could be wrong on that though.
See, I thought
could
it was
be wrong.
March, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, I'm not 100%. If you know, for those of you watching, if you know the exact date, comment down below. But I think it depending on when that vote is, if it can get approved before the annual meeting, then yes, probably will. If it doesn't get approved, they probably won't.
That's true. I didn't take that into account because they don't want to scare off the city of Anaheim and the Anaheim City Council.
Let's get it approved first, and then we'll start digging into what we're building because they're going to nitpick this stuff, you know. So yeah, we'll see. It's fascinating. Overall, very exciting stuff though. Yeah. Like, you know, I'm not gonna, if that's where they build it, cool. I'm gonna enjoy the land. I love the franchise. It's beautiful. I think I would have done it a little differently though. And fingers crossed for DCA.
Either way, no matter how you slice it, DCA needs some TLC. It needs
big time, dude. DCA needs big time. I mean, if they do the Avatar attraction and do it right, like a serious e-ticket, cool. Put that in Hollywoodland. Hollywoodland needs it. And if they give us that Avengers e-ticket, cool. So now you got two biggies on that side of the park. And I would go balls to the wall. I would go absolute balls to the wall, and I would build some sort of Latin America land in DCA, maybe on the other end.
Bro, I don't even know why they don't even already have that. It just doesn't make any sense to me.
It's California Adventure, and you don't have an area dedicated to Latin culture. What is going on with this? It would be such a cool spot. You do a Coco land with a little village.
Tie it into Pixar Pier. It's right there.
Well, yeah, you can go right there, and then across the street is the big expansion pad, right? For Disneyland Forward. So that's where you can build your big immersive Latin America land. It can be sort of like, you know, the Latin New Orleans Square with the cool little walkways. You can have like street vendors cooking food. You got the music. Oh man, you have this elaborate Coco dark ride. Beautiful.
And the ride separates, and the ride would separate the life to the dead. So essentially the land itself is the Latin village
Right, the
where
culture and
Miguel
food.
lives with his family and everything. Yeah, you have like the street vendors, you have the music playing, but then the attraction is what takes you into the afterlife
Right, right.
where their loved ones are waiting for them. Oh, it's perfect. It's
It's beautiful.
perfect.
It's beautiful, and they've already beta tested Coco in that park. They have several Coco stuff that they offer, like temporary stuff over there by like the Paradise Garden area, the food court area. The Feliz Navidad stuff during the holiday season does amazing numbers. I mean, we recently did that for this past holiday, and the energy and the music and the color of that entertainment is incredible. Come on, build a Latin America land. You can incorporate this stuff more seamlessly into a permanent land. It's absolute perfect. But DC needs most of this love. I would be very disappointed if Disney goes too far with investing into Disneyland. Disneyland is the A+++ student already. DCA is over here with a C+. You got to get this guy this guy.
You got to get the grade up.
Come on, you got to boost it up a little bit. You know what I'm saying? It's getting kind of crazy. And then it affects the operations too, because you have like Radiator Springs Racers where it's like, well, there's no other e-ticket in the park. So it's like they're hesitant to ever shut it down. And it just, yeah.
And also, too, I feel like DCA, speaking of Coco, with it being a dark ride, it would bring it to another indoor attraction where I
Right.
feel like DCA doesn't have too many of those. So if it is bad weather, such as rain, which you guys have been getting a lot lately over there in California,
Right.
that a lot of those rides have to be down. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, DCA has very little as is. So any outdoor rides that are closed, and that includes Radiator Springs Racers because it is partial of an outdoor attraction. So is Incredicoaster,
Right.
Goofy Sky School, Silly Symphony Swings, the Golden Zephyr, Jumpin' Jellyfish, Mater's Junkyard Jamboree, Luigi's. All those rides are outdoors. So if you have all those attractions that are closed, you have even less to do at DCA.
Yeah, they need some indoor stuff. They need some family stuff that like just everyone can go on, whether you're 8 or 80, and a Coco dark ride could do that. You can make it a Coco boat ride, or you can have it whatever, but you can do that with Coco. I think you need some of that stuff in this park.
Absolutely.
It lacks, I think those big kind of like just like those Pirates of the Caribbean style attractions. So we'll see. Fantastic video from Brickey. It really got my imagination and the juices flowing, because it's almost like it shuffles all the pieces. Like, just because when you put Frozen there, it changes the equation even for DCA and things like that. So I find it very, very fascinating. And it makes a great case. But any final comments, George, before we close it out today, brother?
Only just a big thank you to Brickey for producing this amazing video that inspired us to do this video. And I'm very optimistic. I have a very strong positive attitude of what the company is going to, pull through over the next decade, especially with the parks and resorts. And especially this just gives us hope that, when you have someone like Brickey that is literally laying it out for us and
Right.
showing us the goods with the Google Maps and taking us around the different areas of how he would block this off, add this, change that, switch that around. It definitely gives you a different perspective where it's like, you know what, if he can come up with it, so can Disney. And if that's the case, then it's all good.
Yeah, no, I think it'll be cool. I have concerns, but an open mind, and we'll kind of see how Disney kind of approaches this. And it's fun to kind of watch the process kind of play out,
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And D23 Expo, my boy and I will be there for sure. So that's gonna be crazy. We'll have a good time with that. But George, if you could let everybody at home know where they can find you on social media, sir.
Absolutely. You can find me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Disney George. You could also find me on Instagram under the Disney Italiano. And of course, you'll find me here on my home base at Orange Grove 55 with Citrus Corner, with all that sweet, juicy, but sometimes sticky Disney news and info. And yes, as OG had mentioned, we will be out on location at D23 this coming August, and also for our very first ever OG 55 meetup. So if you are in the Southern California, Anaheim area, or if you're going to Disneyland or attending D23, we'll get all those logistics kind of straightened out. And more so, it'll probably be the meetup will be somewhere sometime in downtown Disney.
Yeah, exactly. And the reason why we're thinking maybe downtown Disney is because with the reservation system and the blockouts for certain passes and things like that, it might be harder for some people to have access into the park. So we figured downtown Disney is open to everybody. So it's much more accessible. So yeah, that's what we're shooting for. But thank you all so much for watching this episode of OG 55. Comment down below with all your thoughts on everything we talked about today. Frozen, Avengers, e-ticket, Zootopia, the expansions, just anything on your mind with everything we talked about today. We would love to hear from you. Thank you so much for watching and supporting the channel. We are a small channel, and we appreciate every person that hangs out with us. We love our OG family. We appreciate every like, every share. It means the world to us. So we're all a family here, whether you agree or disagree. We're all just nerds, just having a good time. So,
to all who come to this nerdy place, welcome.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you all so much for watching OG55, and have a great day. Bye-bye, everybody.
세상이 누구에게나 공평하게 추악해.